Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Monday, April 22nd. We're here. We're going to be breaking it down. We got a fun slate today. It is starting just a tad later than normal, which is actually kind of nice too because it gives you a little time between NBA lock to baseball lock, to try and get those lineups in order and ready to go. So I hope you guys have a profitable day. Now, before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all. One low price. So, now let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going over yesterday's perfect lineups for both the Fanduel and DraftKings early slate. And then what we're going to do is go over the pitching for today, followed by the stacks to consider. And hopefully after that, it's takedown time. All right, guys, now let's get into it. So yesterday's perfect lineup for the main slate, we had Mitchell Parker. This one hurt me a little bit. I definitely did not expect him to go off like he did, but he put up 55 and it went off. So stack-wise, two-man Philly stack, and then all one-offs with Mitchell Parker. The winning lineup on good old FanDuel did go to Aaron Nola, and we had a Philadelphia stack, a four-man Philly stack, two-man Boston, one Baltimore, one Tampa Bay. Got it done. 228. Frank DeBoss, you got it done. Good job. And now let's get over to the DK side. Now, DraftKings had Lou Gill, Mitchell Parker. Then we had the good old Philly stack and two-man Miami stack as well. Got it done with the winning lineup going to Donkey Nuts with Sonny Gray, Lou Gill as the pitchers. Then two-man Philadelphia stack. It was two different Phillies, though, and a five-man Detroit stack. They put up 6 and got it done with Garcia's 18 points versus Houston. So, real nice lineup. Once again, it, was the old 5-2-1, which is a very, very common lineup construction that we see on DraftKings. And it won again. Who knew? Now, let's get into today a little bit. So, 7 games, 4:20 Pacific time start, 7:20 for you East Coasters. And it looks like it's an interesting one. So, highest owned pitchers, we got Reed Detmers, 33% owned. He is versus good old St. Louis. It's an versus Baltimore. It's an interesting spot. You don't generally see Baltimore being a spot that people are picking on, but they are today. Baltimore striking out 22% lefties. They have a pretty high ISO, 180 team ISO. Now, the average ISO for a player is like 170 or something like that. As far as a full team, definitely above average. Baltimore is only hitting 160 versus Detmer in 36 at bats. If you stretch that out to 45, it's 158. So, obviously not all these players have really gone versus Detmers, but Detmers has done well versus Baltimore, and he's off to just an incredible start. A 1.98 FIP over his last 5 starts, 32% K rate. He has been very, very good. At only 8,500, putting up some elite numbers makes some sense as far as why people are going there. He is also averaging 27% more fantasy points at home. 26% or 27% combined K rate. I get why everybody's going there. I think he might be going a little bit higher owned than he should, but he is definitely one of the better options on this slate. I really think there's only a few options on this slate that we can go to. Detmers is one of them. Yusei Kikuchi is next. It is kind of interesting. So 2 of the better hitting spots as far as weather or three of the better hitting spots are also the three highest pitchers today. So Yusei Kikuchi, 9.5 over under. It is one of the higher game totals of the night. But Kikuchi, like Detmers, has been very, very good so far. On the season, 2.08 ERA. He has a 2.4 FIP over his last 5. Over his last 20, 2.74 FIP. He has been extremely good through, the back half of last year and the start of this year. K-rate's been really nice. StatCast data looks really nice. He's been good versus KC, only a 179 average and 31 plate attempts with a 29% K rate here. And KC hasn't been good versus lefties, striking out 21.6, low WOBA, low ISO. Makes a lot of sense to go here. I do have to warn you, though, that it is 70 degrees in Kansas City. The winds are like 20 miles an hour blowing out, so there is some weather risk with Kikuchi. We do know he, in the past, has given up the long ball, but he has been very good with it so far this year, only giving up 1 home run. So I do like Kikuchi. I think he's an interesting spot. He's priced correctly. Don't mind going there as well. Next, we got Dylan Cease. Once again, this game is in Colorado, but it is one of the higher-owned pitchers. But Dylan Cease definitely has the highest ceiling on this slate. He strikes out guys around 30%. Colorado is striking out versus righties at 27.1%. So there is definite huge upside here. The combined K rate is 28.5. This Colorado offense just is not good. They haven't been good this season at all. Dylan Cease has been very good. One thing, though, is in Colorado, he's only had one start in Colorado. I went back, looked at his career. That's all. He went 4.2 innings, gave 4 earned runs up, had 6 Ks. Very small sample size, but he hasn't been great in Colorado from that one sample size. So that is the one worry there. The other thing is over-under of 11. It's Colorado, Wild things happen at that stadium. So it's a tough one because he is absolutely one of the better pitchers on this slate, but following a chalk pitcher in Colorado is just hard. You never really know what's going to happen. Don't mind using some Cease. Don't love it. But there's really not many options that I like. And Cease is definitely one of those options I like. I like Kikuchi. I like Detmers. Another guy I like is Brandon Pfaff. I think he is the low-owned pivot that we can go to today. Cardinals offense hasn't been that great lately. Striking out at 23%. They do have a decent WOBA versus righties, and Pfaff has been averaging 23% less fantasy points away. So, ton of things to be a little worried about, but Pfaff is a big-time prospect, and he has shown some promise. 3.78 FIP over his last 20 starts, 4.29 over his last 5. But the thing that I'm interested in here is the K rate. 25.6% at 8K is decent. Combined K rate, 22%. The team splits, St. Louis is pretty much an average offense, and the pitcher StatCast data looks fairly good for Pfaff. I'm not too worried about the 50% fly ball just because there's only 25% hard contact rate. So a lot of those fly balls that are being hit aren't being hit that hard. I am interested in taking some swings at Pfaff. I think he is in an interesting spot. He's going to go low owned, and he's definitely one of the guys I can take a swing at. Another one, I am kind of interested in Bryce Elder. We have seen Elder have solid upside. He averaged going 5.6 innings per game last year, and he was way better at home. His BABIP, our opponent BABIP at home was like 260, versus away was like 290 or something like that. He is much better at home, and I'm absolutely interested in taking some swings against this Miami offense that has just been terrible. 286 WOBA versus righties, 160 ISO. He's averaging 46% more fantasy points at home. I think Elder is an interesting pivot that you can take, especially, when you're talking about the other guys that are going higher owned are high over-under games, just like the Atlanta game is, but the difference here is Atlanta is a huge favorite where the other guys aren't necessarily huge favorites. So I think he's the other pivot you can make. Now let's get over to FanDuel and check out pitching over there. Unfortunately, Elder is not an option right now. Hopefully FanDuel adds him, but who knows what we do here. So on FanDuel, Dylan Cease is the highest owned, 36%. He is 10K. Like I said, he, has the most upside, but it's really hard for me to pick a 36% owned Dylan Cease in Colorado as the spot I really want to go to. So that is my big worry here. He is high owned in a extremely high variant spot in Colorado. So for that matter, I might be a little underweight to the field here. Reed Detmers next. Don't mind some Detmers. He's in a great spot. Well, he's been pitching very good, but in a tough spot. It's really interesting that the high-owned pitchers, Cease in Colorado, Detmers versus one of the best offenses in the league, Baltimore. And then we have Kikuchi, who they're not necessarily face one of the best offenses, but it is one of the better hitting environments of the day of 9.5 over under in KC with 70-degree temps, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. So really interesting pitching today to kind of dissect for FanDuel and go through it. Once again, I kind of have the same pivots here. I don't mind some Paft. You could go Lance Lynn. We do know at least when he's on, he has a real high ceiling. But most likely he's just not going to quite get it done. He hasn't really this year. Versus Oakland, he's only putting up 31. He just wasn't striking guys out, but at least he made it 7 innings there. He hasn't been able to get to 6 outside of that. And Arizona offense is a pesky one. 160 ISO, 323 WOBA. It's a spot where I don't mind a little in, but I also don't mind stacking against him as well. So let's get into it. Let's get into some stacks here. There's really just not that many options for pitching on FanDuel with Elder not being there. Hopefully they add him so, it gives us really a 5th option for pitcher there. Now, we'll start on ceiling because we have it picked already. We got Atlanta Braves. No big surprise. It's versus Ryan Weathers. He's just not very good. 5.49 FIP over his last 20. However, pitching way better lately. 3.86 FIP over his last 5 starts. He is a big-time prospect, so maybe Miami's found something with him to turn that around a little bit. But from what I've seen when he was in San Diego, I don't believe that is probably the case. Don't mind stacking against Ryan Weathers. It is, decent hitting weather in Atlanta. It's a hitting ballpark. There's slight wind blowing out. A lot of reasons to like Atlanta. Baltimore's popping up also versus Detmers. Now, Baltimore offense has a huge ceiling, and that's why it's popping up. It's not necessarily this matchup versus Detmers. Detmers is a very tough pitcher. Kikuchi's, popping up also, and that's, again, Kikuchi has been very good, but there is some upside with KC. There is a ceiling. There's really nice weather for home runs, or for hitting, I should say. So those are your top ceiling. Now let's get over to the highest owned. Highest owned, we got San Diego. It's a Colorado game. No big surprise. It is 120% combined ownership. So they are going super high owned. You're talking about 20+% per player there for your stack. That's just a lot. And it's kind of hard to get different too much if you take that. So there are lower stacks. That is just the highest owned one you can go with. But Austin Gomber, no surprise why you're stacking against them. One, highest implied total of the day. Gomber's not good. 5.76 FIP over his last 5. 4.96 over his last 20. It's in Colorado. You can definitely pick on some Gomber. And Padres are just dominating the highest owned stack. We got to go all the way down to like almost less than half of the ownership to get other guys, which is Minnesota. And at that point, I don't really worry about ownership too much when you get down there. Now, highest projected stacks on the day. We're likely to see a lot of San Diego here, but ton of Atlanta. There is some San Diego in there too. The issue with Atlanta is they're just a lot more expensive. However, with pitching today, not really many high-priced options, so you can absolutely get to those Atlanta stacks versus Ryan Weathers. Don't mind doing that. Baltimore, it's a tough one, but Detmers is one of the higher-owned pitchers, so you got nice leverage there. Makes sense to want a little bit of Baltimore. Maybe they get to Detmers a little bit. San Diego obviously popping, no surprise there. Now let's get over to the value stacks of the day. And value-wise, we got some Toronto. So as I said, that KC game does have very nice hitting weather. And Toronto has some, back-of-the-order guys that can put up some numbers. So it is a little bit interesting. Brady Singer is way better at home. So that is one worry about that stack. But sometimes hitting weather just wins as long as they're putting the bat on the ball, and Singer doesn't miss many bats. So I think that's the interesting part here is while I don't usually like stacking a verse Singer, you got good hitting weather, and he pitches to contact a little bit. So it's an interesting spot. White Sox versus Paddock. Paddock hasn't been great. 5.5 FIP over his last 5 starts. High whip, high ERA. I don't hate, some White Sox stacks. Now, am I going a 5-man White Sox stack? Probably not. That offense is just terrible. It's very hard for me to trust that. But I am willing taking some swings outside of that. Now, highest FIP pitcher to check out, going up against Lance Lynn and Arizona. Like I said, this is one of those spots that I find interesting as far as playing either side, because we know Lance Lynn has a giant ceiling when he gets it going. Pretty sure he did win me a GPP last year. He definitely has that ability in him, but 6.15 FIP over his last 20. That's kind of enough said, and that Arizona offense has definitely won GPPs for people this year as well as last year. So I don't mind taking some Arizona at very low ownership here. They don't have the ceiling, that you would love, but projection's decent. Salary is cheap. Don't mind getting there. There's definitely value with 2.1x, 2.0x areas there. So extremely interesting to go there. And then the bullpen for the Cardinals has just been all right. But the big thing here is that Lance Lynn's just given up a lot of hard contact, 38.7% hard contact. So definitely a little interesting going there. Implied run total-wise, San Diego, Atlanta, Colorado, KC, Toronto have the highest implied totals of them. Miami and Colorado have the 2 worst bullpens, so definitely interesting stacking either of those teams, as well as KC, who Toronto doesn't have a great bullpen, and we've seen Kikuchi be able to get blown up in years prior. So he's off a little bit, and it can definitely harm him and go against his way. But all in all, very interesting slate. Good luck to everybody. Let's make some money, and please like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Helps us out a ton. Adios, guys. Bye.